Without further introduction, I would like to give the floor to an amazing scholar, a great friend of Central Asia, and my own great friend, Professor Abuzar Khairi from Jamia Millia Islamia University, for the keyword. Abuzar ji, the floor is yours.
I joined.
Then,
I'm okay.
then we'll pass the floor to you.
Okay. Now, can I start?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm sorry. It was the technical error. But now I have already joined. And first of all, Khanim Lair, Janab Lair, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abuzar Khairi from Hindustan Lair, and I'm very much thankful to the Farghana Daulat University, Eurasian National University, Christ, Ibn Khaldun, Haider Aliyev, and others also. And some names are there which I can read there. This Amina Gasanova, Batir Jan, and of course Akbota. I know you when you came here in India, your last visit, you have discovered this idea about the Jaddidism, and we discussed long, and you have you evolved this idea to just we organize the one conference there in the Farghana Daulat University, and of course Zakia and my scholar friend Yasir Sari from, I think he's from Turkey. I'm very much thankful to all of you. You have organized this very uh, important conference in the 21st century about the Jaddidism. I'm just discussing about the origin and development of Jaddidism in Central Asia. First, we have to understand the Central Asian region. The region was the cradle of human civilization on the world map, where several races traveled and established their kingdom from time to time on this region with the new philosophy and innovative ideas which became the role model for others, such as urban development had started in Central Asian region during the time of Kushan Empire, which was stretched up to the Indus Valley in Punjab in Hindustan. And with the arrival of Islam in the first decade of the 8th century, the area was known as Mawaraun Nahar, became the center of scientific learning and development. They institutionalized the educational system and produced a quite disproportionate number of renowned scholars and scientists such as Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, Al-Khwarizmi, Imam Bukhari, Imam Tirmizi, Al-Biruni, Ulugh Beg, Ali Sher Nawai, and others also. As we know, all these names which are here, and lot of names are others also. I couldn't include all the names, but these names are, I mean, still today people now they are knowing throughout the world. For example, Ibn Sina, still we are knowing as he's a father of medicine. He has written a book, Al Qanun Ash-Shifa, which was prescribed in the European countries till 17th century in the medical sciences. Musa al-Khwarizmi, he is known as father of Al-Jabra, who has written Al-Jabr wal-Khabar. All these kinds of things, Ali Sher Al-Farabi, because Al-Farabi, he was a scholar, he was a philosopher, and in Hindustan, in our in academy, in Jamia Millia Islamia, we have given a one name to our room. This is the Al-Farabi room. There is a one building's name. It is known as Al-Biruni, Ibn Sina block. There are several names which we have also using here. Al-Biruni, we know in the 10th century who traveled from that place, Berun to Hindustan. And that time there was no as such language, there was a language problem. He came and learned the Sanskrit language here, and he has written a Kitabul Hind, which is a marvelous book, and it is an authentic source for just to understand the Indian society and culture. To these, all the scholars, those they belongs to that region. But what happened just after some time? I mean, everything has disappeared. Wow, how? Just we can see the history from the just I'm mentioning about something like, for example, after the invasion of Genghis Khan in 13th century, cities were destroyed, libraries burned, irrigation system demolished, and many craftsmen taken off into slavery, and many peasants fled, and destructions of academic institutions has created a vacuum throughout the Central Asian region. And it was the main cause for economic and cultural backwardness, from which Central Asia for a long time would not recover. During the mid 19th century, Jaddidism had spread with modern education system among the Central Asians for their enlightenment. Within the 2 decades, Jaddidism became a comprehensive movement for modernization of Muslim society in Bukhara. And we are not going to discuss about what happened in the 13th century in the Central Asia. This was the turning point. There's the big, but that's why the people migrated from Central Asian region to the South Asia. And we are knowing there is a lot of scholars, those who are living in since that time. For example, we admitted like Amir Khusru, Bakhtiyar Kaki. He is from Osh. All the Sufi saint and scholars, they came from that region to just and they settled here. Anyway, that's but it happened because of the situation. It was created during that time, and the Central Asia, which was the learning center during that time, because one was the Abbasid dynasty there. There were the Batul Hikmah was there, and in Batul Hikmah, every knowledge it was transformed into the one language, and either medicine from China, mathematics, astronomy from India, or Greek philosophy from Greece. Every knowledge which was scattered throughout the world, the main contribution of the Abbasid dynasty, the whole of the period, they have, collected all the knowledges into one platform. And that is the very important platform which is known as Batul Hikmah. We can translate into English, it is the house of wisdom. Anyway, the word Jadid, basically Jadid word, this is an Arabic word, which means new, modern, reform, whatever you can say. So originally, this movement was started in the Volga-Ural region, and their ideology was known as Jaddidism. This, which means modernism, reformism, and initially the Kazan Tatar scholars such as Shahabuddin Marjani, Shamsuddin Kultesi, Muhammad Najib Tanteri, Ziauddin Kamali, Alim Jan Barudi, Musa Jarullah Begif, Rizauddin Fakhruddin, Abdullah Bubi, Hussain Faiz Khan, Qayyum Nasiri, Zainullah Rasuli, Abdul Rashid Ibrahim, Fateh Karimi, Zahir Bigi, and others had taken the initiative. If I will not take the name of the Ismail Beg Asperinsky, my friend who has mentioned Yasir Sari about the contribution of the Ismail Beg Asperinsky, then it will be injustice from my side. Of course, Ismail Bey Gasperinsky, which Russians are saying Gasperinsky, Turkish people are saying Gaspirali, has a special place in national revival and modernization movement among the Muslims of Russia, Central Asia, Caucasia, and the place, other place also. His comprising approach with the Russian administrative bodies facilitated achievement of successful outcomes, both in terms of publications of periodicals and in terms of introducing the new education method into Muslim schools. With the framework of reformation, he had become an ideologue vis-a-vis his educational reform program and publication, which was named as Tarjuman, which was published in dual language, in Turkish as well as in Russian language also. Now, this was the Tarjuman newspaper. And the Jadid movement established schools in Central Asia also. And they used the modern method of instruction, which we are known as Usul-e-Jadid, means new method. Their main aim was to reform the old, means Qadim, system of educational method from the schools and establishing new method schools with modern technology such as publishing house, stage drama, or theater, social, political, and cultural institutions. The movement was created on the educational reform program on the ideas of progressive intellectuals, which is known as Taraqi Parvarlar of Central Asia. The Jadid wanted to modify the educational system in order to train the students with modern modern knowledge and skills and enable them to achieve Western model. This was the spirit of the Usul-e-Jadid. And Jadid set up a new method of his schools to put it into the practice and educate new generations. The movement became a powerful ideological instrument in the field of struggle against political, moral, and technological backwardness of Central Asian people. The same situation we are talking about the Central Asia, the same situation it was implemented in other places also. We are not using here other also like Russia, Caucasia, and other places. Most of the Jadids were products of traditional maktabs, that is, schools. There was conflict between Qadim and Jadid, means modern and old. The struggle between the Jadids and supporters of the traditional way was in fact contest between two different understandings of knowledge and its transmission. The maktab emerged in the world of written, not printed text. The European printers were producing books in the Arabic script as early as beginning of the 16th century. And even in the Egypt, when the Napoleon Bonaparte, who came to the Egypt, he has established a printing press there in Cairo. Anyway, this first printing press was established in Central Asia. It was in 1868. This press installed at the Russian military headquarters in Tashkent. These buses, because that time this what you can say alphabets, Arabic alphabets, they were using, and just to print this Turkestan gadget. It was known as Turkestan gadget. The Jadids, who were profoundly known to be great supporters of the newspapers, belonged to the era of printing press. Their focus was functional literacy and print, which allowed them to not just challenge the authority of Central Asia, well-established cultural elite, but to also take down the monopoly of the traditionally learned authoritative discourse. They used print to their maximum advantage and went beyond the concerns of intellectual lineage. The Jadid project involved nothing less than the redefinition of the social order by claiming Jadid project involved nothing less than redefinition of the social order by claiming newspapers to the spiritual leaders of society and challenging the elite. In Tashkent, around 13 presses were situated in 1917. Almost 13 presses were established, but no commercial printing presses existed in the Khanates of Bukhara and Khiva. The Amirs of Bukhara, in particular, had become supporter of tradition and conservatism in domestic affairs, were opposed rigidly to the new invention. The Jadids confronted colonialism, and as and when required in the Governor General of Turkestan, which was under direct Russian administration, and in the entire of Bukhara, which maintained its own governmental institutions under the Russian protectorate. In both areas, our connections with Russia suggested new models. of development and raised cultural and moral challenges that called into question questions traditional institutions and values. Jadid constituted a unified movement, being conservatives, radicals, and moderates, and above all, as individuals, each one of them profess their own ideas and culture and identity. Social change, religion, and state. Basically, if we are talking about the what is the role of Jaddidism in the field of educational program. The history of Muslims of Russia and Central Asia, can say the Ismail during the time of Ismail Bey Gasprinskis, who has published this Tarjuman. First, he was an editor. It was weekly. Then it was published daily. And the new type of schools of Muslims, which focused on the secular program of instruction. Gasprinski's Tarjuman newspaper was established in 1883 and was printed up to the 1917 to the Bolshevik Revolution era. At the beginning, Gasparsky launched a Tarjuman to advocate its educational reform program. Nevertheless, the publication of such newspaper, read in every Muslim community of the Russian Empire, had turned out to be a big reform in itself. Kaspersky sought out to form a common literary language for all Turkic community in Russian Empire, including Central Asia and other neighboring areas also. The language was used in simple mode of Ottoman Turkish, including Crimean and Turkic expression. The idea of newness was in turn in tune to the modernization and confirmed the Western idea of unidirectional history of image of backward people shedding the Oriental futures of their culture. Gaspariski's new method required the modification of the educational system on the subject of curriculum and system of education. Gaspariski has introduced usul e This is the phonetic method. This is also Arabic word, phonetic method in the school program. Concerning the curriculum, he encouraged the introduction of additional courses such as elementary arithmetic, geography, history, and biological science to the Maktab curriculum. He introduced the educational program in Bakhchi Sarai in 1884 and gained success from very beginning. Sadr Maksudi always remembered Ismail Bey Gasparinsky as his spiritual father for his warmth and sympathy, as well as for his massive role in his intellectual development. Sadr Maksudi traveled in Bukhara, Tashkent, and parts of Turkestan area. And even if we are talking about the education of the for girls, Ismail Bey Gasparinsky's daughter, she had opened one schools especially for the girls, and even in Kazan, there is one madrasa, especially madrasa. I forget the name. Might be Madrasa Muhammadiya. This is especially for girls during that time. All the I mean the wherever they were very active. They were opening the schools and giving the educational program. What we have in Tashkent, we can say the Manawar Qari. Manawar Qari, the first school was founded by Manawar Qari in 1901. And the several hundreds in other places like Bukhara, Samarkand, Tashkent, Kokand, and other places till the First World War. All of them were active. In Bukhara, in 1910, they founded Shirkat-e Bukhara Sharif, the Association of Noble Bukhara, a joint stock company whose sole purpose was to publish textbooks. Among them were Aini, He has written a Tahzibus Sibyan, the education of children, which comprised importance of the education and the role of family learning and empowerment of Zururiyat Deen, the requirements of religion, which presented the fundamental teaching of Islam. Of course, there is a great name, which is known as Abdul Rauf Fitrat. He was one of the greatest ideologues of Bukharan Jaddidism. Graduated from madrasa in Bukhara and went to Turkey for a higher education, where to establish himself along with other Bukharan immigrants and created a Bukhara Tamim Ma'arif, benevolent society of Bukhara for the dissemination of knowledge among the masses. And his first book, which was published in 1910 in Istanbul, which was we known as Munazara. Munazara, this it means the dispute, discussions between the Bukharan madrasa teacher, especially it was on the Bukharan madrasa teacher and the European, no, European and the teacher of the European. And he discussed. And the second book, which was published by the Abdul Rauf Fitrat, this was the Bayanat Sayyah Hindi. It tells of an Indian travelers, and it was published in 1911. It's basically, originally it was published in Persian language because Abdul Rauf Fitrat he knew Persian also, Persian, Uzbeki, and several other languages. Of course, Turkish also. And this translation of this book of the Rauf Fitrat, which was published later on in Russian language also, a translation version. The book is Bayanat Sayyah Hindi, and this was the fictional account of an Indian traveler's visit to major cities of Khanate of Bukhara, where he met people from all walks of life, including ulama, jurists, businessmen, craftsmen, and peasants, and holding conversations with them. Fitrat described the situation of Bukhara while also highlighting its existing educational institutions. In between, just I'm also mentioning here in India, this was at that time, this educational reform was started among the Muslim community by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. This was initially Aligarh movement, which is known as today Aligarh Muslim University. And this is a central university here in India. This is a very good university. And when Fitrat returned from Turkey, he played a very active role to a struggle for social, religious, and political reforms in Bukhara, especially in the struggle to establish new methods in school. The Usul Jadid. Being a true enlightener, he was engaged simultaneously in many projects, including social reforms, in social criticism, including social criticism, literary creativity, journalism, and politics. He became one of the most radical Jadid leaders and was called an early critic of Emirate of Bukhara's regime, which has already depicted in his work Munazara Mudarris Bukhara in 1911. He also led the left wing of the Bukharan Jadid movement. There was, they also discuss about the education of the children, Tarbiyat Atfal in Bukhara. And this was he basically promoted the educational reform in Bukhara also. And with 28 members, 14 of whom were ulamas, remained under the dissolution of the April 1917, and their work of enlightenment was treated revolutionary by the then authorities. The association helped students in various ways. And since there was no method madrasa in Bukhara, it undertook to send students to other places such as Orenburg, Kazan, Ufa, Istanbul, and Cairo. And the rulers of Bukhara were modest, inclined towards liberal thought, and the Jadids found encouraging ground only in Russian extraterritorial settlement within the Khanates. such as the city of New Bukhara. In this region, they were protected by the Russia and also with the support Russian diplomatic agent. The new Methodist schools opened in easily. In 1900, the first Ul Jadid school was opened by Mullah Junabev in Pushtun zone, but it was unsuccessful. Another school was opened in 1902, was by Tatar teacher. His name was Karimov, and the Tatar children of Russian settlement in Bukhara, and the school was closed, but after some time, there was also some problem. Anyway, the second generation of Jadid movements, if we are talking about the after the second generation, the mainly they focused on the basis of the experimental in their literary creativity, then their elders, for example, Hamza Hakim Zadeh. From a prosperous, he belongs to a prosperous family and was educated in a maktab and madrasa in Konkan, and also attended the Russian native school, where he learned Russian language. He opened numerous new Methodist schools and wrote textbooks for them. He wrote poetry and first Uzbek novel in addition to plays on reformist and revolutionary themes, thereby becoming the leading playwright of the new Uzbekistan, which our scholar Yasser Sari has also mentioned about they were talking. He was talking about the prose and poetry and the drama and the theater. All of it was the. I mean, they have developed playwright of the new Uzbekistan. Even Abdullah Qadri studied the traditional schools in a Russian native school to learn Russian and was much influenced by the reformist press. He was a prolific writer and the founder of modern Uzbek novel in 1920s. Fazullah also, he came to do well-to-do religious family and combined a traditional maktab and education with studies and association with liberal Russian in Moscow before 1917. And Cholpan, of course, Abdul Hamid Suleiman Cholpan. He was born in a wealthy family and prominent family. He received a traditional Islamic education and attended Russian native school, where he learned Russian, which has gratefully acknowledged open European literature and culture to him. His thought is clear throughout his poetry and prose. Mahmud Khwaja Behbudi was the most prominent figure among the Jadids. He came from a rich family and, being the son of a mufti, was well educated in both religious as well as secular subjects. And later, after his father, he had traveled extensively several places. There's a literary programs and publications. It was which was, I mean, taken by the Jadid movement. We the Russian After the Russian conquest in Central Asia, the first printing press, which I mentioned about the 1868, it was established in Tashkent, and press was the printed books was imported mainly from India, Ottoman Empire, and Cairo, and some other places also. For example, I think in Iran also. The new system of education required revised textbooks, and Jadids were accountable for literary output in all genres all genres during the end of the regime or end of old regime. Two new fields of local publishing trade came up during the time: textbook for new methods, um, school, and new literature, free and old literary traditions, and illuminating new ideas. The new textbooks appeared in the early 20th century on the pattern of modern Tatar models, introduced a new kind of children's literature in Central Asian maktab. The first Jadid publications, which was published in Tashkent in Turkic language. Among them were very important personality. His name was Munawwar Qari, which he published in Khurshid's is was published in 1906. Abdullah Unani's Shohrat, which was published in 1907, and several others books. It was published in 1912 after 4 years. There was a Amir's the one newspaper. It was named as Bukhara Sharif. It was published in Tajik for the Tajik region. It was true organs of enlightenment, informing its readers about the wide range of topics. Almost they dealt everything. But we have to now. I will discuss something about what happened. They covered all the aspects of the Jadid at a time of we can say they talked about other things also. For example, they spoke about the millet, means the nation, and sometimes they applied the term to the Muslims of Central Asia, and sometimes more narrowly to the Muslims of Turkestan. Thus, at the first, ethnic identities were encompassed by the broader Muslim community. For example, the history taught in the new methods schools was Islam, not of Turks and Turkestan, and the language was called Musulman Tili, Muslim language. That it was in that time. This was used by the Jadids when they talked about the millet and many Jadis also they use the word watan, means I think you can understand watan millet, yes, and which traditionally had referred to one's birthplace. This is the concept of the watans, and that is in a city or region. But increasingly, after 900, it designated a larger territory united by a common culture. In Chalpons, Dr. Muhammad Yar, and in the works of Aulani and Hamza, Watan meant Turkestan, which now the Yasir Sari he was also talking about about the Turkestan, and today also the modern in the 21st century and the age of era of technology, we can say that now the Kazakhstan is also talking about the Turkestan and other because it covers all the areas. And ethnic differentiation was also present in thought of many Jadids, as they identified the Muslims of Turkestan as Turks, thereby excluding the Tajiks. This was it was in that time. Anyway, Jadid, this is another part of the very just I will conclude Akbota because the Jadids, what is the Jadid during the time of Bolshevik Revolution? During the time of Bolshevik, Central Asia was in turmoil situation. They were decisive for Jadids as a revolution changed in very character for their project. The era of classical Jadidism was at an end. In the previous decade, they had acted as small intellectual elite. Now, they were forced to adjust their program and methods and demands of mass political and social struggle. They had not only to confront the Amir and the conservative ulama, but also to maneuver among the competing Russian political forces in Tashkent and other cities also. As their involvement in the affairs of the new Russian depend political activism became the defining features of Jadidism, and a new men came to the fore. One of them was Fazullah Khozayev, who renounced Jadidism in favor of revolutionary change. Uh, we have Russian Revolution, and then we have. I'm not going to be discuss here so many things because of the several newspapers like the publications. We discuss about the Tarjuman. There is a one newspaper. It was named as namely we are knowing as Waqt. It was published from Orenburg, Irshad, and Hayat from Baku, and of course all these newspapers, and this was circulated everywhere in Tashkent, Bukhara, and Samarkand, everywhere. But during the time after the 1917, after the Bolshevik Revolution, Jadid participated in the reconstruction of Central Asia under Soviet patronage. But they could not reconcile their own aspiration with the demands of the new regime. Sadruddin Aini. He came from the modest family, and he was only one Jadidist who survived, because all of them, they were either killed by the um, by the Soviet regime because of the in 1930s, and all of them, they were known as young Bukharan, and this was young Bukhara, and it was the, that time it was it was very famous. And during the time of Stalin's Soviet regime widened on all fronts of the 1930s and assumed violent forms. Munawwar Qari, Cholpan, Qadri, Tawalla, Haji Muin, and Obedullah Khuzaev all disappeared in the Gulag in 1930s. But by 1938, when Fitrat was executed, and Fazullah Khuzaev, most famously of them all, mounted the podium at the Great Purge trial in Moscow as part of the anti-Soviet bloc of the rightists and Trotsky to face the fatal charges of counter-revolution and anti-Soviet activity. The Jadid generation had been eliminated. They were replaced by new generation whose education and worldview have been shaped entirely within the Soviet context. Only I mentioned the name Sadruddin Aini. He alone survived, and everybody where they disappeared, nobody knows. In between, and just I'm mentioning two names. It is a very famous name, Jadid, very famous Jadid. Jadid belong to Jadid movement. For example, Zaki Walidi Tokan. Zaki Walidi Togan, who belongs to the Bashkortostan, and his village is Ishimbai, of course, the bordering area of the Kazakhstan that side, and he flew from his country, and he now he that time he went to Turkey, and Turkey accepted him, and then he established a very good school there in Turkish. And he supported the Turkish language and others because of his caliber. And one example I'm giving you, Musa Jarullah Begiv. Musa Jarullah Begiv, basically he was from Rostov-on-Don, and he was active in Jaddidism. And during the time of course, in 1930s and Stalin's time, he left his country and he went to Japan, and from Japan he came to Hindustan. And but finally he was arrested by the British Army in Peshawar. But on the request of the Nawab Bhopal, to the British Army, he requested to hand over Musa Jarullah Begif to just to give to us, and he was in house arrest in Sheesh Mahal in Bhopal. He was there, and he has written one book also there, because his book's name was Kitabus Sunnah, and he used a different name. Sometimes he used his name Fatima Bibi, Ibn Fatima, like different name he used. Musa Jarullah Beki, because all the he was afraid from the Soviet army also. And then very interesting, I belong to this university where the Jamia Islami, it was established in 1920, and when it going to be celebrated silver jubilee in 1946, on the request of Dr. Zakir Hussain. Zakir Hussain, he was a rector of that time of this university, and later on he became the president of India also. And Dr. Zakir Hussain requested Musa Jalullah Beghi just to send some written educational reform program for this university. And he has written around the 50 pages on the educational curriculum program of this university. And still it is, which was published after translation in Urdu language in one journal, and still it is here in the archives, and we used to use sometimes. So this is the, the how the Jadid, they were their role, they were the role model for others, and they have, where they have they went, they have contributed his academics contribution either in Turkey or in India. I don't know about the other places, might be. But what happened this during the time of the Soviet, this it was almost nobody were talking about this. About the Jadid movement, about the Jaddidism, but. With the interest, it was when the perestroika, it was introduced in 1980s during the time of Gorbachev. Now the people, they have started to talk about the Jaddidism, and after that in 1991, when the Soviet Union disintegrated and these countries got independence, and they have put their name, like every country has put their name Astan. And they use, now they are talking about the Jaddidism, and they are freely, they are talking everywhere now. They are discussing about their contributions, and they are about how they played important role in throughout the literature, throughout the literary program, and about the educational reform program. And it was a very important, as yeah, of course, and I basically, I'm a student of the Central Asian region, Russia and Caucasia, and since 3 decades, I'm trying to just to explore new ideas. And obviously, I not compare myself to others. Of course, in this field of Khalid Adib Khalid, he's a renowned figure. About the, he talked in his book about the adab, about the all the aspect of the Jadidism and Jadid movement. Anyway, there's so many things I couldn't discuss about here because of the time. Of course, others are also waiting. There, I have seen the several names are there in the program list. My colleague from Turkey, Yasser Sari, is also waiting. I know he's also expert in the Jadidism, and he knew the Turkish language. I don't know the Turkish language. My source is secondary source. Honestly, I'm speaking. I'm secondary sources. When I used to go to Kazakhstan with the help of Dr. Akbota, and I visited the museum and National Library, where I collected some materials, and I noted and in my diary, like Abhay Punayak and others also. And like the same things, when I used to go to the Bishkek also, I collected so many things, and then I visited the place of the scholars, where we are knowing as like the Aulia Ata. So that is the thing I can understand about the why the Chinggis Atmatov, how he changed his all the, the writings. This is all but now we can freely we can talk here, and we can discuss about in every aspect we can discuss. And with these words, I'm thankful to all of you, those who listen very patiently. And might be there's some mistake in pronunciation or some expression. Anyway, thank you very much, Akbota, and others also. Now it's
Thank you.